All right, hello and welcome back to the Getting Uncomfortable podcast, part 2 with Orlando Jimenez,
The sequel.
the sequel to the pilot that
Yep.
we got cut off on. So again, I am your host Eric Uresk, and when we left off with OJ, we were talking about fatigue, compassion fatigue, and just fatigue from the job of policing in general, the politics and the red tape of policing, the internal sort of infighting that goes on with the job, and you were just saying how that was really starting to take its toll on you and your life.
Yeah, you start to it starts to wane on you when you don't want to see human beings. You don't want to interact. You want to be left alone. You're closing yourself off. You don't want to leave the house. And then you start dreading actually going and performing your duties as a public servant.
Right.
Starts to wear on you because you, like we spoke before, seeing people at their worst, and then dealing with that, and then going home. For example, we'll bring up another case. You're on a call. I just had a newborn. It's 2013. My daughter was born February 16th, 2013.
Your second child.
My second child, which is a daughter. But then I get a call. Father runs over his child, 1-year-old.
Oh man.
Baby, right? So this baby's on the sofa. It's an accident.
Yeah.
Baby's on the sofa. Mom thought the 1-year-old left with the dad when he pulled the truck out of the back. Dad thought the baby was with the mom.
Wow.
It's 8 p.m. I get this call at 10 p.m. You get called in, you don't know what's going on. First you hear it's a missing child, so you're thinking, okay, missing child, let's get there, get the details of the child, put it out, find the baby. But it wasn't. It was the child ran after the father as he was pulling out in his big truck, didn't know, ran over the baby, left, came back, asked the mother where the baby was. Mom says, I thought he was with you. Realized, you go check the yard, and there he is, skull crushed, right? So you walk into the scene as a new father, as a new having a newborn, to a baby under a towel on the sofa.
Yeah.
Parents are quiet, not saying much, and you're looking, and you see here was once life in your hands, and it's no longer, right? So then it's doing your job, staying on scene, waiting for the medical examiners, the investigators as far as the detectives, and then questioning both parties, both parents. CPS is involved now.
Wow.
So it's a long ordeal. So when you go home at 8 a.m., it's about how do I turn that off, right?
Yeah.
And that was hard. That was hard because I didn't know how.
Right.
And I didn't know how to talk about it because I needed to be tough and just keep it in. And you might say like, oh yeah, I had that call, this and that in front of other cops out loud.
Right.
But inside, it's fake. You being tough is not getting you through it.
Right. And you also had mentioned last time that when you did want to talk about these things with your superior officers, they were a bit dismissive.
Right, because it's one of those things where they've all seen it all. These guys are 20 years into their career, 25 years. They've seen every scene you can think imaginable. So they've been through it. They have thick skin. They're hardened. And so that's the idea that you think you have to adopt that and be that.
Right. Would you say that's a lack of leadership? Because it's like leadership should recognize that.
I say it's a lack of full transparency and vulnerability where you can't open up like that, right? You're so hardened. You have your vest on, you have your duty belt, your badge, your gun, and you just go.
Yeah.
Until you can't. It's like you're running this race, and you start to feel the wear and tear.
Because for me, I coach fighters now, and I ran into a lot of pitfalls over the course of my career, and it's like my job, people need to learn lessons for themselves, but it's also my job to coach people through these pitfalls, or give them, the cliff notes.
You're talking about coaching, on a world class level, and that's what I was used to coming from the military. There's a process returning from overseas during a wartime.
Yeah.
And then even when I competed and wrestled for the Navy, there's a program there with coaching staff and mentorship, and going into college, the same thing. you have about 5 college coaches.
Yeah,
You
I'm
have-
just looking at leadership, right?
Right.
So a coach is a leadership position, right? And
Yeah.
so I look at these superior officers with a leadership position, right? Essentially. But it doesn't seem like there's a lot of actual leadership.
No, and that's, I think, where you still, well, I can say that that's why there's issues now with compassion fatigue. Why do you have a whole, since we've talked last time, you get a real life clip of a family on the asphalt in the summer, children, they're all women and a couple of infant
Yeah.
or toddler children. Why
Right.
do you have them prone down, face down, hands zip tied on the hot asphalt inside of a parking lot?
Yeah.
Because you mistaken that vehicle for a stolen vehicle. But you should be able to approach that vehicle knowing there are 3 women and 2 toddlers in the back. I can assess that immediately.
Right.
Right, but when you have compassion fatigue and that builds up and
Right.
now you're just the enforcer, right?
Mm.
You're so calloused and you have no compassion for the people, that's what you see. That's what you see there when you have a man down. Despite if he's resisting or not, no one deserves a knee to the back of their neck when they're already in handcuffs and detained.
Right.
No, what it is that you have that loss of compassion for the persons who you're called to serve and protect as a public servant, first and foremost.
Yeah, and I don't want this to come off as like an indictment against
No.
police officers, because it's not. It's actually, I think your story and your anecdotal evidence is, it sort of
It's
sheds
the
light.
training.
Yeah.
It's the training.
Yeah.
So if we can go and say, look, this is what they needed. They need training to where they can be open. They need training. They need to be taught from the top down on how to handle their officers when they're dealing with these cases or certain ordeals and they're having a hard time processing or dealing with this, to speak about it, right?
Right.
Without judgment or right, wrong, or indifferent. You're taking a stand for them so they can be better.
Yeah,
can-
and they also kind of have to be protective of themselves too, because if they fuck up even just a little bit, it seems like there's somebody, even another cop, waiting to bite them in the ass.
And that's also part of that same fatigue, to where here you are doing a job and you're one unit, but within that actual department, there are people looking to do harm
Yeah,
more than people outside of the department.
yeah,
So it's almost like, for me, I had tough times with certain calls for service, but the department, I couldn't wait to get out of that building
right.
and stay away for as long as I could during the shift.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, no one's happy to see me in the street, and then I get back to my department and I got people trying to, undermine me and backstab me. Like,
Yes.
fuck, dude.
It's a real thing. So I'm sure it's that way for every department.
And why do you think police officers, because you go online, get involved with a debate about police, and you'll have, generally people who love the cops have family members that are police, right? And they're Blue Lives Matter, et cetera, and real pro cop and really unwilling to look at any of the actual faults of the police. And then you have people that just think police should be gotten rid of completely, and I sit somewhere in the middle of that.
I think you just a balance, right? You have to look at through a real, not such a small lens, but broaden that lens, because it's balancing that. It's not, I'm so far over here or so far over
Right.
there.
And why do you think that's such a hard conversation to have for police officers?
It's just tough in general, I believe, because as law enforcement officers, like my sergeant would always say, the people love the firefighters. Why do you think? I would ask him why. He said, because they don't arrest or give tickets.
Yeah.
He would say that. So they're America's heroes.
Sure.
And I would think, damn, okay, that's a tough one to have to swallow, because we give tickets and we arrest people.
Yeah.
Right? So we deal with people at our worst. You might not feel like shift work. You want to talk about shift work alone. That is detrimental to your health and wellness. And when we're talking about fighting, being fighters, coaching, and seeing what your athletes need, you understand the need for rest, when to unplug,
Right.
when to recharge,
Right.
when to take a break.
Yeah.
And that wasn't often the case as being a cop, unless you were involved in a shooting or where someone
Yeah.
were to die and it was a death investigation, or a homicide. Then you got time off. Other than that, I don't feel like in the leadership of a police department that there wasn't adequate training for them to notice those things
Sure.
and say, like a coach would, like a world-class coach, hey, today you're not going to run these sprints, or you're not going to go
Right.
live. You're going to rest.
Nobody to pump the brakes.
Yeah.
To say, hey, this guy's on edge, right? He's obviously he's had some tough cases lately. You know, he's seen, whatever it is, a dead child or some shootings that were horrific. Let me give this guy a break and maybe, pump the brakes. It's almost like these guys are left to go out and from where I sit, do this incredibly difficult job with absolutely no tools on how to handle the rigors, the emotional rigors of what that job implies.
And you would think that there would be a lot more available resources of EQ, of emotional intelligence for law enforcement officers, but it's not. Because of the gig and because you have to be hardened and tough, that's considered weakness. Opening up and being vulnerable, right? Because accountability is love. So when those captains, lieutenants, sergeants, corporals are standing in that, they're standing in accountability to their officers.
Yeah.
And being accountable is being love. And that is that gap there. That's what's missing. If to say what's missing is that love. Because for them, vulnerability is weakness.
Yeah, and it's like they'll take up for each other
part of that.
if it's to, not say anything if somebody fucks up, right? But it's almost like codependent. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we'll cover each other's fuck-ups, but we're not going to do anything to help each other grow and nurture each other through these really, just emotionally demanding.
Right. Well, that's why I can remember my sergeant had already been through 2 marriages, 2 divorces. The lieutenant, 3 different wives.
Yeah.
Alimony, child support to several different children from those marriages, and so on and so forth.
Exactly. And these are the people. So these people can't, they're not doing well in life. If you're getting divorced that many times, you're not great at relationships.
No, they're actually the relationships take the biggest hit.
Right. So if I can't be good at relationships,
I can speak on that.
Right?
I can speak on that with marrying at 22 and then becoming a cop at 26 and it taking a toll on the family.
Yeah.
Yeah. To where you even having conversations is that I don't know if this is going to work because this is who I am, and you have to deal with it or not. You become that.
Right.
Like,
and so
no,
for
that's
me,
not working together.
For me, like the standard, right? So the standard I want for these people, right, that are going to come out and tell people what's right and wrong and upholds the laws of society. If you can't manage a relationship, right, should you be out telling people, governing, basically being the enforcement of how people are supposed to live their lives in a civil society?
Yeah, and that's a tough one because, oftentimes you're going to turn to alcohol, even drinking. I remember having to pull over a sheriff's deputy who was driving under the influence, and I had just seen him on shift that day. He was on shift. I was coming on. Here we are at midnight. He's coming from a tavern, weaving.
And what's the protocol on that?
Well, the protocol for that was to, I was in field training still, but I was with a motor officer who was solely DUIs is what he dealt with. And so in training, he had when I pulled him over, I realized who it was. I took his ID to the sergeant, and he called his sergeant, the on-duty sergeant for the sheriff's department.
Okay.
And we pretty much handed it over to them. So they dealt with it in-house.
In-house. So likely nothing happens.
Just a slap on the wrist. But there's been times where I've seen officers have lost their job.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they're trying to deal with it. Can you imagine what day he had? And I'm not making excuses. You're responsible for your actions.
Sure.
And going and just letting off some steam.
Yeah.
And then driving under the influence.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're dealing with this daily.
Yeah, man. It's not
while upholding law, and then you find yourself on the other end.
Yes, so you have this incredibly hard job. You have no tools to deal with it. You have a young wife, and you're 5 years deep, and you decide this is no longer for me.
Yeah, I was like, this isn't working. I believe my marriage was in a place to where it was going to end at that point.
And your wife's a fucking soldier.
And she's a G.
Yeah.
She's from South Phoenix.
Yeah.
You can't get any more G than that. Any hood, more
Yeah.
hood gangster than that.
Yeah.
And she dealt with a lot. And it was taking its toll. We only had one child, and then a daughter was born. And that was it for me. And then plus, there was so much more to do that I wanted to do
Right.
creatively. And then within the department, I had ideas for a bike patrol department. We were building that for school resources, for defensive tactics. With seeing the things that we've seen now, we saw them there then with Eric Garner and a lot of other cases where officers were in fear for their lives.
Sure.
And drew their weapon and shot at someone where I believe it could have been prevented. I never had that. Because if I couldn't talk them down, I knew I had these.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
But it rarely got to that.
Sure.
You know? But I wasn't here shaking.
Yeah.
You know, there was, like I said, there was guys in qualifications or just in the shooting range weekly. Veterans just had problems.
You know, even
in
nightclub security, I found the guys that could de-escalate the best were also the better fighters.
Right.
Because there's a confidence.
And the same for cops.
Yeah.
Majority of cops that I knew, which were just a few, I'm talking about 3, let's say 3 out of 100, were competed in MMA or martial arts.
Some kind of combat sport.
Jiu-jitsu usually, mostly.
Yeah.
But they had that confidence that they could handle themselves.
And when you have that confidence, you don't have to talk to people with your chest out. You don't have to talk down to people.
No.
You don't have to demand things of people. You know what I mean? In a way that's inhumane.
Right.
And man, people respect that calmness.
Yeah. Yeah, I could say the same. Like I know I spoke to you about that commissioner and the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut and cornering Miles Jury. This individual never been in a fight in his life.
No.
Never trained.
Hard guy to deal with. Yeah.
But loves the authority and power that he has to walk around fighters and yell at them and threaten them.
Threaten their purse.
If they didn't have their mask on.
Yeah.
All right. Or if they weren't in their designated cubby. That's just going too far there.
Yeah, that guy's hard work, man.
But the same thing with law enforcement.
Yeah.
When those guys who've never felt the intensity of a wrestling practice or an MMA practice or anything that was rigorous as far as training, those are the ones that have the chips on the shoulders.
Yeah, there's also something about getting your ass kicked, too.
It's humbling.
Because if you train a lot, no matter how good you are, you will lose at some point.
Well, you saw me yesterday. Here we are. We have a drill practice. We just sparred the day before, and we have a drill practice. And I was going with Dominic, and next thing you know, they switched us and put me with Jeremy Stevens.
Right.
So
little
he's got 25, 30 pounds on me.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, here we go.
Right.
And everything he threw, even though it was a drill practice, hurt. It hurt. And I know you saw me, and you were there coaching me through it, because I had to take it on and say, this is going to be body conditioning today for me. And I have to shift, right?
Yeah.
And I have to grow. I can go throw a fit, throw a tantrum.
Right, and you wanted to.
Throw my gloves off. Yeah,
you wanted to, and it's okay that you wanted to.
And there were points where it was frustration.
Yeah.
You know, you're frustrated because one guy's offensive and the other guy's defense, and you're taking your licks, and there's something to be said about getting your ass whooped.
Sure.
It's humbling.
Yeah.
You know, you still have to collectively gather yourself, perform as a fucking professional, and move on to the next day.
Exactly.
And the next session.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And that's how you would like to see police officers do the same.
And I think it's that humility when you know, like, on any given day, you can be the recipient of an ass whooping. Just maybe you're tired or you're having an off day or whatever. I don't know. It does give a humility where you just talk to people different.
Well, and right now it's where this has happened before, even when I was in law enforcement. No more chokes, no more holds. Don't fight the people. Don't. They're so afraid because they don't want you to kill someone.
Exactly.
Don't do it. Instead of actually getting you the proper training.
Now just don't do anything.
In terms of defensive tactics, to do the right thing and have the right
shootings are going to go up.
Right.
Shootings will go up.
And they have.
Yeah.
They have.
Yeah. Shootings will go up. If I cannot restrain somebody and I don't know how to fight and I'm nervous and I'm fucking some goofy white dude that's never been in the hood before, you know what I mean? And I'm around, Mexicans or black people, and all I know about these people is what I saw on TV. You know what I mean? I see rap videos, and that's how I know about these people. I'm going to be fucking all over that trigger, right? Some nervous, goofy white dude that's never been in the hood before. Now he's working in the hood.
I can remember being on calls having confidence, but knowing that I'm in the hood and I'm clicking my retention, my holster. Just clicking it. Right. There's a part of that where you're playing a game too. Yeah. They see you doing that, and you want them to see you doing that. It's like, who's going to be first? Right. In this cockfight, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and that's you become a part of this.
Yeah, it's a
You
dangerous
do.
game, man.
It's a dangerous game. You start to play this game, but then that guy that you saw that night before is at the state fair while you're carrying your son around. You're like, damn, okay, I'm looking at the possibilities here of what could happen.
Yeah.
Because I was playing a game of chicken with him last night in the hood, and here we are in a different setting. I'm with my wife, my child, my 3-year-old son. I don't have a weapon on me inside the fairgrounds.
Right.
And he's looking at me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You
He might
start to
have
think-
his.
Because I know of officers who's gotten their ass whooped off duty when those guys saw them off duty. And that's reality at a baseball game.
Yeah.
They remember you.
Yeah. Sure.
So they're gonna get you. They're not gonna let that one go. You know, they're gonna slide you.
So upon leaving the police force, what was the final kind of nail in the coffin, and then
The interdepartmental turmoil with this person looking into your overtime time card. I was doing operations. It's called Operation Stone Garden. So we're working with undercover DEA and Border Patrol on the border,
okay,
doing those type of even more dangerous work in the desert, right?
Right.
So you're hand jamming everything, tickets, warnings, submitting your timesheet. You really just want to get home. And it was a new electronic system, so everything was online. You do it instead of hand jamming it. You were electronically submitting your timesheet. I messed up on the timesheet. So some corporal who I never worked for and never worked under had it out for me. Why? Because I was a non-narcotics. He had a canine, right? And he was a corporal for that shift. So while I was out there catching bad guys and drugs, they were also working the streets. So I was doing drug interdiction. I was also nabbing more than he and his canine ever did without a canine. I was, like I told you before, I was grabbing more off the street as a bike cop, just cruising through the streets like a stormtrooper, them thinking that I'm a Mormon on a bicycle as they're making their deals.
Yeah.
And I'm rolling up. Ring, ring. I had a bell on my bike, too, on my patrol bike. Ring, ring. They didn't think anything of it. So as they're making these trunk full of exchanges with a van, trunk full of money, a van full of cocaine or marijuana, what have you, here I am on the bike. Ring, ring. Coming up. Hey, guys. How you doing? They look. Oh, shit. Put your hands up.
Yeah.
Calling the cavalry for backup.
Yeah, of course.
They didn't see me coming because I was on a bike.
Yeah.
So I had more drug busts than the actual narcotics unit. Me and my partner, there was 2 of us on bike patrol, and then the officers with the canines.
That's fucking wild.
But then you envy and jealousy is a real thing.
Yeah,
It's a real
of course,
thing.
man. In every field.
Right. And I was young.
Yeah.
I was young. I was still competing as an athlete. Just finished college. Got a double major. Feeling myself.
Yeah.
I had confidence.
Sure.
I was shit hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one was gonna fuck with me. I killed it in my exams in the academy, and I killed it on firearms, defensive tactics, you name it.
Right.
You know, PT that was a health spa.
Right.
That was a day spa considered.
You didn't want to be a shell of a human being, though.
No.
Uh-huh.
But I knew whatever I was going to get into, I'm going to do my best.
Right.
Right. And not everybody has that competitive drive.
No, but that's what took you out of the police force, is what I'm saying. Is like you didn't want to end up like these guys that have been on for 20 years.
I didn't want to the back and forth, the ups and downs, the highs and lows of dealing with that in the department, because nothing was going to change there. Right. Chief might retire, new chief, lieutenants, cap. It's the same thing. It's the same gamut.
Yeah.
You know, the same show. It's about bringing revenue in.
Yeah, that's what it is.
It's all about bringing in money.
For
right?
sure. You're collecting for the rich.
Well, yeah, because what happened is I decided that I want to be a public educator. So I wanted to give warnings for traffic citations. I wanted to educate the public. That was not in the best interest of the city, the judges, City Hall, which also dealt with the city manager, city planner, and the chief of police. So when we turn in our tickets or warnings, we submit them to our sergeant. He then submits them to the records. Records then submits them to the city hall.
Yes.
So the judges, the city hall judges, see those every weekend when they're going through. So what do you think when they see 50 stacks of warnings and not 50 stacks of tickets?
Oh, they're pissed.
They're pissed off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's about data, metrics.
Sure.
No, it's about money.
Huh.
fill the coffers, right?
Yeah.
For the city manager and everybody at the table.
Okay.
Yeah, off the backs of what? The hardworking people.
Did you
blue
start
collar
law
people.
school while you were in the force still?
No, I had submitted to go into law school, but it wasn't until after.
Okay.
I had already left. It was July. Shoot, I had just seen you. When
Okay.
I had seen you,
Yeah.
that was my month off. I spent a month in San Diego, and then you were going to.
That was just upon me leaving San Diego for Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I knew I was done.
Yeah.
And I took a month off, and when I went back, resigned.
Right.
Was over.
Uh-huh.
Didn't want to do it anymore.
And what did the rest of the people around you and the force say when they found out that you resigned?
Well, the friends, the family member, my uncles were glad. They were like, it's good that you're gonna, you don't have to do this. Most of the older guys that were good cops,
Yeah.
when I would see them at the PD, in the lobby in the front or gathering my gear, they say, hey, if I could have got out at your age, I would have. And do something else. You can do so much more.
Wow.
In the chief and the patrol captain, the last thing they stated to me is like, whatever you do, you're going to be successful at. We know that.
Amazing.
Good luck. And they weren't gone far long after that either.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's just, I wasn't like I said, I wasn't a dirtbag. I
Mhm.
wasn't lazy. I was just a hard charging
Yeah.
young cop. But I
Right.
took everything I learned in athletics and sport with wrestling or MMA into that.
Performance.
Every day.
Yeah.
Performance. But it was something that I learned, that the importance of resting,
Right.
of turning it off.
Yeah. Turning it off.
That month here in San Diego was the best rest I had gotten in 5 years.
Wow.
And I realized, like, I'm not going to go back to that job and get that, right, through this
Yeah.
course of time. And that was 5 years ago. So, yeah, I decided to move forward. I was offered a position. Uber was growing big into this big monster of a ride-sharing company, ride-hailing. And so, yeah, I started with Uber. They were building an investigations team, and they wanted personnel with law enforcement background. And I thought, this is a great opportunity. It's downtown Phoenix. It's 10 minutes from my house, 15 minutes from the MMA gym, and 2-minute walk to the Arizona State University Law School.
Nice.
And that was my mission. It's like,
Okay.
you know what? I'm going to continue in this work, but just privately,
Okay.
right, for Uber. So we created their critical response team, their full-on special unit investigations team, because what people might not know is that there were death investigations. There's accidents on the Uber platforms. There are rapes, murders, you name it, just like the street.
Jesus. Yeah.
Whatever can happen will happen. So even though you created this beautiful platform where it can take you from A to B, right, shit happens.
Yeah.
Drivers were being mugged in New York.
Yeah.
They were being lured to a pickup in Brooklyn just to be murdered, their wallets stolen, the vehicles taken. So these were real crimes that were
Man, that's
taking place.
fucked up to
Yeah.
kill a cab driver. Like, we used to just jump out on cabs, you know what I mean, and not
There's
pay the
there was
fare, but
there was one I could tell you.
never killed no
There was
taxi
one I
driver
could-
before.
There was one I could tell you. The lady called in on a Saturday, and I was in the office. We had a small unit. There was only 15 of us. We were just building it up. She had just received a pickup to pick up this person in L.A. She pulled over. He jumps in, not knowing he just robbed a bank.
Jesus Christ.
So you have police, you have 5-0 on their tail. She has no idea she's aiding this criminal who just robbed a bank. So as she pulls over, because she sees the red and blues and the lights and sirens, he gets out and starts engaging with law enforcement. They shoot back. They kill him. But can you imagine if she were to be shot and killed? All because she was picking up somebody and giving him a ride, because she decided to turn on her Uber app and make a couple of bucks. Now that has happened. Father's Day, 2016, Dad gets up, Minnesota, decides, you know what? It's early. I'm going to get on for a few hours. The family's sleeping. He never makes it home. The young lady he picks up is so drugged out of her mind, she stabs him through his back seat, killing him, and takes off. Later they find her, but this all happened on the Uber platform while he was
Wow.
giving a ride on Father's Day.
Oof,
Yeah,
okay.
so it's like
Yeah.
I left like dealing with it in person to dealing with it through Uber and the app, and it was just a little different though.
Sure. Well, you're not dealing with the in-house politics of policing.
No, and also you had a different style of leadership.
Yes.
a more open
Okay.
door policy, speaking about what happened, because these were people. There were a couple of interns that were never officers
Mm.
that were in house and dealing with this on the ground level. So you know, it was about being there for them
Sure.
while they're training and experiencing this.
Okay.
And really, if they want to do this, because those are people who were talking about, I want to do this because eventually I do want to be a cop.
Yeah.
Well, and then they realize that's not what I want to do,
Right.
because this shit's real.
How long did you do that for?
I was with Uber for 3 years, so the whole time I was in law school.
Okay.
3 years, and I had a great experience. They were, I mean, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to come out as often as I did to train for Dominic's camps at those times.
Right.
TJ Dillashaw, Uriah Faber, Cody Garbrandt.
Yeah.
And also be a world team member for Team USA's MMA team.
Right.
And travel all 3 years.
Yeah.
While working, having a family, and going to law school.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I have nothing but great things to say about the leadership within Uber and the opportunities they give you for growth.
So amidst all this, right, you know, obviously we covered that, you know, what your role is as far as Dominic's marketing manager and the job that you do there. But you've also sort of embarked on a journey of your own for, you know, developing emotionally and just growing as a human being. What inspired that?
I'll share that. I remember coming out here. I had just left the set of Creed 2.
Uh-huh.
I was asked to be in Creed 2.
What'd you do in Creed 2?
I was pretty much, we went to New Mexico with Sylvester Stallone and Michael B. Jordan, and just training. But it was like a desert scene. It was called like Purgatory, where he was going to take him out there and retrain him, kind of like Apollo did with Rocky.
All right, brought him to the gym in LA.
Brought him to the gym, showed him that hunger, where to get that hunger back. And so we were just the fighters in the background, hitting the bag, running, that kind of. So if you see in the beginning of the on that scene, there's 2 little brown dudes running. I'm one of the 2 one of the 2 Mexican guys running. So, but it was a great experience, because you hear all these great things about Sylvester Stallone, and they're all true.
Yeah, huh?
After spending 5 days with him, he's amazing. Just on set with a cigar, some scotch, shooting the shit. But once that filming would start, he turned into Rocky Balboa.
Wow.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing watching him and being a part of it. So from there, I came to San Diego, because my goal was, like, I had appointments and job offers with the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to continue with that. I had hesitation, because I'm like, I'm getting back into law enforcement. And I had a run with
bigger corruption.
Well,
Yeah.
I had a run with at campaigning for the state of Arizona
Okay.
for a seat as a House of Representatives
Okay.
for my district.
Yeah.
And Santino DeFranco was my campaign manager. Was also the head coach at Fight Ready, as you know, like trains Henry Cejudo.
Yeah, one of the best coaches
Frankie
in the game.
Saenz, great coach, great friend. He was operating as my campaign manager, and it was doing great. But we realized we were just on the wrong team. We were on the wrong team, and I'm going to be honest with you. I realized soon and fast that my goals and vision didn't line up with the rest of those people that I was supposed to be working with. It was so much turmoil.
Yeah, politics is fucking
It's
dirty,
politics.
man.
It's dirty. It's a lot of you scratch my back, I scratch yours.
Yeah,
Right.
and fuck somebody over
In the
yeah,
process.
in the process.
It seemed a lot like the PD.
Yeah.
A lot of similarities. So I decided, now I'm done. I don't really want to do that.
Okay.
So make the move out here. Had some appointments with the FBI in LA. Completed all the exam and interviews. It was great. Then I walk into Dominic Cruz's house. It's just he and I. He's sitting in the dark. He has one candle on. And he says, "What's your vision for your life?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm doing it all." And he walks me through this series of questions of my vision, what I want for myself, what I see for myself. And I tell him everything that I'm doing, thinking that that's exactly what I want to do. And then he invites me to try this coursework that he was working through in leadership and emotional intelligence. And I said, "Yeah, I trust you. You're my friend. Sign me up." Give him my debit card, and the following couple months later, I was in EQ, EQ, dealing with myself. You know,
And for the listeners, just what is EQ?
emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
So it was a facility in Las Vegas where you can go and engage in this experiential learning, not didactic. So classroom learning,
Mm-hmm.
where we go to class and that's considered didactic learning.
Yeah.
Where we learn, we teach, we
I
write.
don't learn good in classrooms.
And it was challenging for me, but I became good at it, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, I wanted to compete
Yeah.
as a kid up and through college, so I knew I needed to make the grades,
I was
right?
like, fuck that.
So I did it.
Couldn't do it.
I got so good at it in college that I was helping others do it. You know, I was helping friends get through school, helping them with their work as well. And so that was a big part of the learning, which was different. It was experiential learning in a classroom, digging deep, peeling back. Imagine like an onion, peeling back these layers and keeping yourself, and while others are keeping yourself in question. What do you want? Number one thing, what do you want? Holy shit. Ask yourself that. What do you want?
Yeah.
Like before your feet hit the ground in the morning, ask, what do you want? Your voice will tell you. You'll talk to yourself, right? But oftentimes we don't listen to ourselves, or we don't tell ourselves the truth. We bullshit ourselves.
Man, so many people. I know so many people, and I feel bad for them. And it's like, it's not my job to tell people a truth that they're not ready for, right? But I'll watch these people, and you know they're working this job that pays them well, but doctors got them loaded up on prescription medicine, you know, to get through the day and then to go to bed at night,
Right.
and just no ability to handle stress and be honest with themselves about what they want, but convinced this is what they have to do.
Yeah.
Fuck, man. It's like this self-imposed prison because there's just no lack of awareness and honesty.
Right. It's tough. You have to face yourself. So,
Yeah.
you know, the first weekend, it's 4 days. You're in there 12, 13, 14 hours a day, just getting real with yourself. Because the process goes like this. Me, us, and them. So you're really working on you in the beginning of the courses. And then you move on to us, you as a group. I had 52 other people in there from all walks of life around the world. And then you continue on into leadership, and that's about now them, outward. So you realize like everything I've ever done out of fear, survival, inward, it's what we know, right?
Yeah.
And you're talking about mastery now, to come from nothing. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Come from nothing? I got to pull from this archive of my past. No, let it go.
Yeah.
Come from nothing, because if you don't, you can't create. Look at what we're doing now. Remember when we first started talking, they were just ideas.
Yeah.
And I was going into the FBI. I couldn't tell you that I knew I was going to be working with Dominic, building businesses, right?
Right.
And starting other projects.
Yeah.
That was not what I knew is making money, and that was my survival. Not living in possibility where I can create something.
Man, I
never looked
I
at
love
myself
that
as a creator.
coming from nothing, because I've experienced things where in coaching, I can walk into a room, and if I'm in a bad way, right, I'll be like, these motherfuckers are lucky that I'm here,
Right.
right? Because like
Yeah.
they don't know how lucky they are that I'm gonna show them this level of material, right? I'm not happy when I'm doing that, right? I'm not enjoying my job. I'm coming from a real place of scarcity, and I'm not feeling connected to people. When I walk into a gym empty and say, let's see what we can kind of create today. Not that I don't have a game plan, right? But empty. Like, I'm also going to learn something today while I'm, like, we're going to explore something today.
Yeah.
Together, right? So I can't tell you how many of my best days as a coach where I've really have come up with some innovative stuff have been on the days where I come in and explore things with the athletes that I'm working with, right? On a completely blank slate, and like getting their input, and it's just a completely different experience. And I've never really looked at it as just coming from a place of nothing.
Right. And if I look back too in school or athletics, like if I would have learned that earlier, you know, what I could have achieved.
Right. Well, how many guys
Outside the box. You
try
know?
to coach them, and they're like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like,
And you see
motherfucker,
it.
you don't know. Look at you.
Yeah.
You can't
You see it.
Yeah.
And really what it takes is to also, what it comes in those positions, because you know now what you didn't know. Now we can't pretend. It's like, what are you pretending not to know? We can't pretend because we know.
Right.
So it's the space that we're holding for them, and being what's missing for them. They're the younger us.
Sure.
They're the younger versions of us. You, myself, Jeremy Stevens, Miles Jury, Dominic Cruz.
Yeah.
They're the younger versions of all of us.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're all well into our mid-30s, and we're knuckleheads. And I'm sure at some point in time, coaches saw us like that. Like, okay, I remember being there.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
it's really being what's missing. And I see you do it now in your capacity as a coach, right? Because we can talk about a couple weeks ago, Dominic Cruz is mad because he can't get up from the bottom.
Right.
And then he spits out something. This is a world-class champion, but with frustration.
Yeah.
Having a hard time listening to the coach and having to shift, right?
Yeah.
Right? And you being right there, holding that space for him and being what's missing, being patient, because he just has to experience that. He's got to go through it.
Yep.
And that's real. We all, look at me yesterday with Jeremy Stevens. I'm looking at you like, dear God, help me.
Do you know what that frustration is? And it's a gift if you let it be. That frustration, when I have that frustration, it can be a surrender that I don't know, right? I don't know how to handle this right now, right? And the minute when I say that, right, that opens the door for help to come.
Yeah.
Right? But as long as if I could be frustrated and be like, yeah, I got it, right? Not really going to learn much from that
I
frustration.
can't remember ever learning that way, whether in anything, especially in sport,
Right.
especially in mixed
Right.
martial arts, wrestling, or MMA.
But it's like, okay, I'm fucking frustrated. I don't have answers for this right now. Maybe I should ask my coaches what I should do here,
Right.
or what's fucking me up, or
And just saying what is what it is,
Yeah.
and letting it be.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
Yeah,
it's
it's
tough to
really
deal
hard.
with in real time, right? And that's experiential. Like everything, like you're talking about, going back to law enforcement and what it is with, you're humbled. You're going to be humbled
yeah,
in the gym, in mixed martial arts, boxing, wrestling,
Yeah.
kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, grappling, catch wrestling. You're going to be humbled. Not every day you're going to be the baddest guy in the room.
and sometimes I think the lessons on those bad days, and I mean, for some guys, this isn't comforting to them, right? But for me, this is the biggest gift, to have a bad day and leave the gym and still like myself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you, when I was a professional fighter, Friday sparring was going to determine how my weekend went, right? Because if I had a good sparring, I would leave there feeling like I deserved to feel good, right? And I would have a good weekend, and I'd leave in a good headspace. If I got my ass kicked on Friday, I would feel like a loser, and I would have to wait till Monday to get my redemption on whoever made me feel like that, right? So it's they made me feel like that, and I'm going to wait till Monday, right, to put that motherfucker in the ground.
Right.
And oftentimes that would happen, but I lost 3 days of my life. I lost a Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday because I couldn't just take the training session as what it was, right? I couldn't learn from those training sessions. I was not capable of that. I needed proof of my worth right fucking now.
Right.
And if I couldn't get that proof of my worth right now, I had nothing to go on. I had no inherent worth as a young fighter. Fuck, man, learning that now, I can have a bad workout now, or somebody catches me, in something now, and I'm like, oh, my competitiveness will be fired up about it, but I'm like, oh, I get to learn something now. Like I'm happy that I have training partners that are good enough to put me in these situations where I have to learn from, instead of putting my whole self-worth on it. If I'm gonna love or hate myself depending on winning or losing, that is a fucking steep load to carry into every time you train or go into a fight.
Yeah, it's a lot of undue stress that you have to carry for yourself. And a lot of people, when you talk to Dominic or Jeremy or yourself, myself, you did that. That's all you knew. Dominic Cruz went into title fights in full scarcity, fear, afraid, survival, and did it.
Right.
But there's a time where that's all going to come to pass, right?
Yes.
Where the injuries set in, titles are not there any longer. Friends who you had alongside you are not there anymore.
Right.
And it's you.
Right.
It's you.
Now what kind of human being am I? Right? Can I
Who am
love
I?
myself
Yeah.
without the lights, right? Without the groupies, without the free drinks at the bar, because I'm a cage fighter, right? Without all those, the claps and applause, can I be okay with
Now you're
myself
quiet.
alone?
Yeah.
Right? That was a really interesting thing for me going home last year for a couple weeks. I haven't spent that much time at home in a long time, and it's interesting going back where there was nobody. Like, I realized just how much I was relying on this old version of myself,
Right.
right? And it was like, oh yeah, you still like being known as that hood dude that did all that crazy shit, when you were a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And people would still stop me in the neighborhood and be like, yo, you're such and such, and I would still get a little buzz off that.
Yeah.
But I had to check that a little bit. You know what I mean? I was
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
that's interesting, that you're still relying on that to feel good about yourself. But it's just like, people will find anything to feel good about themselves, to fill that hole because they can't do it themselves.
Yeah.
Whether it's being the best criminal you can be, or you know what I mean,
Whatever it is.
or
Mhm.
you didn't struggle as much as I did, right? We get comparative with our suffering, right?
Mhm.
You didn't suffer the way I did, or
Mhm.
well, you had a drunk dad, I had 2 drunk parents that beat me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they start competing over suffering because there's nothing there to prop them up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, fuck, man, I don't have to do all that stuff.
No, it doesn't serve you. You
No.
know, it doesn't serve you in any way, and it doesn't serve others by doing that.
Right.
And when you learn that, I think that's when you come to that level of maturity and understanding emotional intelligence of yourself and how you stand for yourself and then for others. It's important, right? So, because if you aren't looking to partner with others to live out their visions and growth, then to me you're wasting your time.
Yeah. Yeah,
You-
yeah. I
you
mean,
have to be standing for others. You have to have that 10 relationship, of course, with yourself. So that's why I'm saying, going back to the coursework, they teach you to love yourself. I'm 36 years old. My mother and father have never told me they love me. Never, not once. you
Wow.
know? Not once have they said, I love you. I have my mother's grandparents are alive. My father's grandparents. My father's parents are deceased. My mother's parents are alive. They have yet to ever say they love me.
Huh.
You don't ever get that, right? The first person I think to tell me that was my wife.
That's
my
tough,
wife.
man.
And so you look and say, okay, what? I have to let that story go, right?
100%.
Enough with the victimhood.
Right. Well, and here's where people get jammed up, and I see this a lot with addicts, right?
Mhm.
Is they have similar situations, right? Abusive parents that never told them that they loved them. And then it's like, okay, they might never tell you that they love you. Are you going to stay where you're at because of that?
No,
Right. So that's the
a good
choice
question.
right there. That's where you do have a choice. I might not be able to fix it right now,
Right.
but I have the choice to start putting in the footwork,
Mhm.
whatever that looks like, seeking out the help that I
Mhm.
don't have to stay in this position where I'm going to blame why my life is fucked up because my parents never told me they love me,
Mhm.
right? There is a lot of people that make the choice to stay where they're at.
Yeah, and they run with that story
Yeah.
of victimhood instead of standing responsibility and actually be what was missing for you in your upbringing.
Right.
Right. So when I had children, I mean, even then, my wife was like, I'm kissing them all the time.
Right.
The
Yeah.
affection was real, and I know it's something because I didn't receive it.
Mhm.
Now she did. They're the family that sits on the couch all together, entangled,
Oh, that would make me
lovey-dovey
uncomfortable.
family. It was hard.
That would make me uncomfortable.
It was
as
very
fuck.
hard. And then they're all girls.
Yeah.
There's 5 sisters.
Right.
So I'm just like, one's on my lap, the other one's like, slowly kicking them off me, right?
People
And
invite me over for family shit. I'm like, how many of your family are there? And how well do y'all get along? You know what I mean? 'Cause,
Yeah. It was different,
Yeah.
to see that affection and love. I never grew up with
Yeah,
that.
that's
It
shit
was
is
tough
wild.
love.
So it's like, to wrap up, you've had this really intense story, and where you're at right now. It seems like you always were geared towards service. You just didn't know it yet.
Yeah, I always knew I was going to be in service, whether, in the military, in church, in law enforcement,
Yeah.
whatever I did, it was going to be
But it's like,
outward.
now you're helping people like me grow out my dreams. You're helping other people grow their dreams.
Yeah.
You're helping, obviously, Dominic do things that he wasn't doing before, that's enriching his life. And, you're helping a lot of people. So the question I like to leave all my guests with, right? What scares you now, today? What are the fears that you have to work with today? What scares you the most?
Just not doing enough, running out of the time.
Running out of time.
Running
That's
out of
a fucking
time.
tough one, isn't it?
Running out of time. Look at us. It's you working on your goals and dreams, Our videographer, photographer, Julian, talks about the things that he has desires on with photographing for musicians and a name of his own brand. I want to see that become to fruition.
Right.
You know, Prime Hall, who
Right.
just hosted a pool session for all of us
Right.
world-class athletes and coaching. You see what his dreams are, to be with a network like
Yeah.
NBC, ESPN, on
Yeah.
Disney. His sport, Deep End Fitness and Underwater Torpedo League. It's being of use and of a resource, and being outward for those who are around me to see them live their goals and their vision, right?
Right.
But I always knew I wanted to do that. I just didn't have the skill sets until the last couple of years to be
Right.
able to do that.
It's like you put
Right.
together all your life's work.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, to understand, like, okay, a personal strategic plan looks like this, okay? And like what we mentioned before, if you dream it, okay, you move forward into let's declare that. So when we talked about a podcast, it's, hey, what is it that, okay, this is your declaration. You dreamt this is your declaration, now it's time to deliver. Push record, right?
Right.
And just let's see
That's
what
it.
happens.
That's it. We let it
Because the
rip.
alternative is nothing happens.
Exactly.
So we know that already.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And yes, I want to be kicking it, watching Netflix and developing or thinking about new merch for cruise or cruise control, or
Right.
but you have to live in being that creativity.
Yeah.
Right? And that's fun.
That's super
It's
fun.
It can be frightening and
Ah,
scary, but to see others live their best and being a part of that, it means everything.
Right.
It's like what we're supposed to be doing.
100%, man. Well, I'm enjoying the ride, and the ride wouldn't be happening without you, or at least it wouldn't be where it is right now without you. And stoked to have you on. Stoked to have you guest. You will be the sometimes co-host. So get used to this guy. This is the second episode. So we'll be, you'll be seeing these things come out periodically as this thing grows. And please like us, share us, let your friends know about us, and we will see you the next time.
Getting uncomfortable, baby.